This podcast is sponsored by TGO magazine.
Hello, and once again welcome to the TGO Show, the audio version of the Great Outdoors magazine, brought to you by the Outdoors Channel. My name's Cameron McNeish, I'm TGO's editor, and I've been catching up with one of our regular lightweight backpacking contributors, Simon Willis, who's been making the rather strenuous shift from lightweight hiker to mountain marathon runner. I also managed to take a walk with my old mate, TGO's gear editor, Chris Townsend, and as luck would have it, we caught the very first snows of the winter. Well, Simon Willis has been a regular backpacker for a long time. A few years ago, he and his wife Liz hiked the Pacific Crest Trail in the States, but more recently he's been taken to the hills in a pair of shorts and running shoes. At the end of October, he took part in the first original mountain marathon, the event that used to be known as the Carrymore International Mountain Marathon. Simon kindly popped into the TGO office to tell me all about it, and I asked him to tell me something of this metamorphosis from backpacker to mountain marathoner.
I think you have to blame the woman who's sitting just over there, your designer, Robin Frew, because she'd invited me to take part in the Hebridean Challenge. And actually I'd put backpacking on the back burner. After we did the Pacific Crest Trail, 5 months of that, we kind of felt backpacked out. So we'd started sea kayaking, and Robin was looking for a kayaker to take part in the Hebridean Challenge, which is a team adventure race. And it was actually while I was doing the training to get fit for that and doing a bit of running, we all went on a course in the Lake District, and it all sort of clicked together. We were doing a bit of map reading, we were doing a bit of hill running, and I thought, this is really good fun. And so rather than just doing backpacking, I thought, well, if we load the gear light, we can do a couple of runs and make that last a couple of days. And then, of course, heard about the mountain marathons, and it sort of grew from there, really.
So was there a point on any of this training where you actually felt, hey, I'm a fell runner now?
Oh, I'm not a fell runner. I'm a staggerer, a plodder. I tell you what, when you see a good fell runner coming downhill, it's poetry in motion. One of our team, Dominic Scott, he's been a junior international fell runner, and he goes up hills faster than I come down them, and going down them, my God, these boys are brilliant. No, I'm absolutely not. I'm a hill runner. I'm a member of a hill runners club, and I've got the sticker, so I know I'm on the back of my car. I'm a member of Westerlands, Westies. But I mean, all the good guys who are like little whippets shoot off ahead, and I'm there bringing up the rear, panting, but enjoying myself.
Well, that's the important thing. Now, listen, we've known about the Carrymore Mountain Marathon for a long, long time. It's now changed its name to the OMM, the original Mountain Marathon. What's the attraction of an event like that? Because it's been going for donkey's years and it still attracts huge numbers of people.
You know, when you're doing it, you almost wonder to yourself, why on earth am I doing this? Because it's cold, it's wet, it's hard, it's boggy. So why do it? Do you know what it is? I'm not altogether sure, because it's not the competition. For most people, it's not the competition with other people. Because unless you're going to come in the top 5, there's no point in trying to compete with other people. Because actually you don't know it's not like you're running alongside somebody trying to go faster than them, because they may have started an hour before you or an hour after you. So you don't know that. So you're not in direct competition. I think the challenge is an orienteering-based challenge. And I think this is one of the things that most hill walkers can identify. If you've got a low mist down, and you've got your map and your compass, and you kind of get yourself out of a problem, or you get yourself just to where you want to be. It's not a rage, and you know, something like Craig Meggie. When you find the summit marker on Craig Meggie, it's really exciting, because you can be wandering around there in a mist for hours. I know, I've done it. It's a bit like that on the mountain marathon, and this year's on was a good example. Day 1, low cloud, raining for a lot of the time. It was written up in one of the websites as very much a navigator's day. And I loved it. I had a lot of luck, because you can do everything right when you're navigating. And if the gods are against you, you just go completely apart. And there were stories after this year's event of people spending the night in bothies and things, because they end up entirely the wrong valley and going into B&Bs where they didn't expect to be. I was with my brother-in-law, who's done nothing like this before, and he was seriously impressed, and I was as well. As I say, I had a lot of luck, because we would come up to a checkpoint or a control, and I'd say it's just behind that little hill there, and sure enough there it would be. And it just worked for me this year. And that That is the enormous satisfaction of it. I loved it when the mist was down, because actually I could be quite faster. I was a lot faster than all these people who are rushing off in all these different directions, because my navigation's quite good. And I think that's the challenge, because the next day, when it all cleared, I really didn't enjoy it as much, because this year we were on a linear course. I can explain the difference between linear and score if you want. But on a linear course, when it's clear weather, I do get the bit of a feeling that you're in a crocodile, in a procession, and you can actually, navigation doesn't become an issue. You can see the line of people you're probably going to follow. They're probably going to be on your course. And that's less exciting. And I don't think I would do another linear course. I would go for the score courses, because I think they are more challenging and make you think a bit more.
And that's more like an orienteering event, where you've got a number of checkpoints you've got to visit, but you can visit them in any order.
Well, that's right. I mean, some orienteering events are linear. I mean, things like the Phoenix and the Capricorn, they're very much linear events. But a score event, it's also like the Polaris on mountain bikes, where you have got a fixed amount of time, and you've got to get as many checkpoints as you can in that fixed amount of time. 5 hours if you're on the short score, 6, 7 if you're on the long, 6 in the medium. But I had to do the linear ones to know how fast I could cover the ground in different terrains, because if you're running on the street, you can jog it. I don't know, what is it, about 10 kilometres an hour? You don't do nothing like that on the hill. So how fast are you going to go? Well, you need to have a couple of mountain marathons under your belt so you can work that out, because there's no point in coming in late. If you're coming over your 5 hours, then you lose, not all your points, but you lose them at a heavy rate.
Now, this is a 2-day event. You've got to camp out overnight, and obviously a lightweight backpacking kit is pretty essential. Can we, as ultra-lightweight backpackers, learn anything from the experienced mountain marathon runners?
We can learn things from them, and we can teach them. The elite people are going to be performing in a quite different way to most of us, because they're going to be coming in quite late, and they're going to be setting off very early. They're going to be in camp for a very little amount of time, so they can almost put up with purgatory. They can sleep on bubble wrap, as some of them do. They can sleep under the most minimal kind of tent, bag with poles, really, and they can survive on that. However, if most of us are going to do this, and we're going to be out for 5 hours, if you've got an 8 o'clock start, you can be in camp from 3, 4 o'clock. It can be a really, really long night. Now, if you were a novice to this, and you just looked at the elite and you copied their techniques, you'd have a very cold, very long night, and you could actually have a few problems. So I think people going into this can look at the lightweight techniques that backpackers have developed, certainly in America, and adapt them just as much as they can also look at the mountain marathoners and put those two together, and you get somewhere, hopefully roughly where I am, to be a kind of a comfortable mix of the two.
Now, about your own kit, you don't have to go through the whole kit list, because people can read about that in TGO, in the magazine, in the features you've written there. But was it satisfactory? Did it work out well for you?
I took the one thing that I had slight question marks about was the tent. It was good. It was the new from 2007. They managed to get it in for me from France. It was a Coleman Rigel X2. The old Colemans were terrifically popular, the Coleman Raids, partly because they're only 980 grams, and partly because they cost only about 70 quid. This one, the new Coleman Rigel, is going to cost about £90, and it's going to be lighter, so it sounds like it should be great. However, it still is a single skin object. It doesn't have much ventilation. They've tried to put new ventilation in the roof, and because it was very humid, we got wet inside, even though we kept the door open all night. Now, there are better tents around. I know you use the Terra Nova competition laser light, isn't it? Now, I've never actually been in one of them. I've looked in one of those. I've laid down in one of those, and I'm never sure you can really comfortably get 2 people in there, but I'm going to have a look again at that.
I would doubt it.
I know, not comfortably. But you see, that's just it. That's the trade-off. There again, I would try the Rigel again, but I would like to I tried it to keep the door open. I got a stick in keeping the door open. So that was the only bit that I don't think I got 100% right. But there again, we survived, but it wasn't raining. We had a dry night. If it had been high winds and driving rain, I think we might have had a bit of a problem. It would have been a bit damper. I got my sleeping bag right, only just. Was there anything else that I would do differently? No, actually, I think we've probably got it about right. I think I've got it down pat now.
Now, that's, as you've mentioned there, that's only for one night. Would you be happy using that kit on an extended trip of, say, maybe say 4 or 5 nights?
Absolutely not. I most certainly would not. In fact, we thought about doing this as a thing that's coming out, I believe, in the April issue of TGO. John Manning, our deputy editor, and Chris Townsend, the gear editor, we went out for 2 nights, so 3 days, and we went up through Moydart, and we knew it was going to be very boggy. So I was tempted initially, because we initially were going to do this in September, sunny, what have you, and I possibly would have used more mountain marathon gear. However, we ended up doing this in October, totally different kettle of fish. The OM's in October, but 2 nights, no, quite different. So instead of using the Rigel, which I knew would get very wet after 1 night, I used a Trig 1, a Go-Light tarp. I used waterproof socks under my fell running shoes because I knew I was not going to be running. Sure. I'd be walking, so it'd be useful in bogs. So I had those on the top of Innovates, and they worked really well. Mm-hmm. I used a much stronger Gore-Tex jacket rather than the Kamlika jacket, though I used their pants because I think they're good. So it's adapting the kit. And knowing or trying to work out what kit you will need for those conditions, and not assuming that one size fits all in this context, because it doesn't.
Well, there you go. It's nice to know mountain marathon runners can maybe learn a thing or two from us backpackers. Well, in the current issue of TGO, we've put together a list of what we think might be appealing Christmas gifts for anyone who enjoys the hills and wild places. Chris Townsend and I took a walk up Maila Buchel in the Cairngorms, and we had a good chat about the things we'd like to find in our own Christmas stocking. But Christmas had come early for us, and as we climbed the hill from Rivone, it began to snow. There we go, that's the sound of boots crossing a snowy landscape. But anyway, Chris and I are up here like 2 grumpy old men whinging about the fact that Christmas is just upon us again, and whinging about the fact that we'll probably get more underpants and socks and all that kind of hankies, the usual sort of thing. So we've been kind of dreaming just a wee bit about the things that we'd really like to get in our Christmas stocking. And Chris has told me that one of the things that he'd like to get is a nice new pair of touring skis. So Chris, tell me about them and why do you want them?
Mainly because the skis I've got are all old and falling apart.
That's a good reason.
And also, I must admit, skis went down a line I wasn't very interested in, which was huge and wide and heavy and designed for ski resorts, which I hate anyway. And there didn't seem to be any touring skis around, which is partly why I've only got old ones. But now, there are new touring skis. They've come back again, and they look very good. And I'd love a pair, and especially on a day like this, when you could ski up here just about. Yeah. There's enough snow, which is the first time in November I've seen enough to ski on for a few years. Yeah.
Well, that was good. You begin to sound appropriately grumpy there when you say how you hate ski resorts, and I must admit I share that as well. I hate any kind of resort, right enough. But I think one of the things I have on my list, and it's probably quite suitable for this time of year, is air tickets for a backpacking trip of a lifetime to Alaska. Have you been to Alaska?
I have been to Alaska, yes. Quite a few years ago now, when I did a walk mainly through the Yukon, which of course is the same as Alaska except for a political boundary, I started off in Alaska and did the Chilkoot Trail, which is a great little trail in southeast Alaska.
And if you were, if I was to come to you for advice, if someone, a fairy godmother or even Santa Claus brought me these tickets to Alaska, where would you recommend, do you think?
Oh, I go to the Brooks Range, which I've only ever seen on TV and from photos. But that's right up in the Arctic in Alaska, and it looks fantastic. Probably one of the wildest, most remote mountain ranges left.
Mm-hmm. Plenty of bears.
There's plenty of bears, plenty of caribou. But honestly, from my experience, as in Yukon, where there's plenty of bears, the wilder places where there's few people, bears are actually less of a problem than in the popular places where there's lots of people. Encounters are more likely. The bears start raiding places and get used to eating human food, and then you can have a problem. I mean, I found the place where I've had the most problems with bears, unsurprisingly, is Yosemite, like most people who go there. In the Yukon, even though it was grizzly country, I was there for 3 months, and I saw 2 grizzly bears the whole time.
Yeah, it just shows you, and then sometimes we're worse off with the midges in this country now with grizzly bears. So listen, you want a new pair of touring skis. What else is on your Christmas gift list?
All sorts of things. I agree with you. I mean, a ticket for one of these trips of a lifetime. I think where I'd like to go is New Zealand. Yeah. everything I've seen of the New Zealand mountains, and talking to John Manning, who of course was there last year, I thought it sounds a fantastic place.
Yeah. And of course, anybody who's seen Lord of the Rings will desperately want to go to New Zealand.
Very much, yes. One of the best things about the film, I think, is the scenery.
Yeah.
At times I've found myself watching the mountains and think, oh, what's happening in the story? I've lost track.
And one of the other things I've got on my list is a new titanium pot cum kettle. And, just this past year or so, I've really kind of got used to the idea of using as a kettle, as a mug, come pot for, and just sort of saving weight. But in the whole sort of concept of titanium is such a good thing because it's so light, and it lasts such a long time. Are you into titanium? Are you into all this stuff?
Yeah, I've actually had a titanium pan since 1991.
Wow.
Which has been on virtually every trip since, and it's still going strong. I'd say one of the great things is durability. I used to use aluminium pans, which are just as light, but after a long walk, they'd be so battered and scratched that really you had to retire them and get another one. Whereas this pan, I think it's got one small dent in it after what must be hundreds and hundreds of days of use. So yeah, I'm definitely into titanium, and not just for pans. I mean, it brings stove weights down as well. So we're now getting, stoves that are weighing 60, 70 grams that are just as powerful as ones weighing 3 times as much only a few years ago. I mean, there with the wish list. The new Primus Micron. Now, the Primus Micron's been my favourite stove of recent years anyway, because I think it's the most efficient of the little gas stoves. But the new one is quite a bit lighter, gets rid of the piezo igniter, which broke on mine ages ago.
Yeah, a bit of a waste of space, really, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all right when they work, but you've got to carry matches or a lighter anyway because they're always going to fail eventually. So I'm glad they've taken that off. And according to Primus, it's even more efficient.
Well, that's encouraging. I mean, I know you can buy almost everything in titanium these days, but I've never really seen the point of a titanium spoon or even a titanium spork.
Well, I must admit, I've tried sporks and I don't get on with them. I want a spoon on its own has always been good enough for me. Yeah. And Lexan plastic is even lighter than titanium. And also these days, and a lot of the pans are non-stick, you don't want to be putting a metal spoon in those because it scratches them. So yeah, I agree. Yeah. Where I think titanium is great though, is tent pegs. Uh-huh. Now, when they first came out, I thought, how much for a tent peg? You must be joking. This has to be a gimmick. But having used them, it's not just the weight, they are very light, it's also the strength. I've used titanium pegs in ground where, most lightweight tent pegs, aluminium ones, would bend or break, and they haven't. So I think they're actually better than I originally thought. Yeah. I mean, for those of you who don't know, a spork is a spoon cum fork, which almost seems a bit pointless. A good old Lexan or a plastic spoon has always done me, I must admit. Now, I think some of the other things that I've got on my Christmas gift list is a new pair of Innovate trail running shoes. For walking in the hills in summer. The ones I've got are getting pretty worn now. So that, and also I've noticed that we're getting some Mont Bell equipment into the country, and they do a really, really nice down sweater, which I'm quite keen on for those cold backpacking trips. But I think, Mont Bell, I think they're a Japanese company, but they're beginning to get a bit of a presence in the UK, and I think that's one that's got to be welcomed. Oh, definitely, because Mont Bell have been doing stuff that no one else has been doing, really. What they've done with this down sweater is they've made a down sweater that's designed to be worn under something else, because they've looked at it and thought, down jackets are generally designed as outerwear, so they have a fairly tough shell on the basis it's going to be outside garment. But they've said, well, if we put a much lighter shell on it, we can make a much lighter garment. And as people are going to be carrying an outer jacket anyway, you just wear that on top to protect the down jacket. So I've seen this sweater, and it is astonishingly light. And yeah, it'll be very interesting when it comes over. They've also got, I think, the lightest Gore-Tex XCR jacket that I've ever seen. Plus some other stuff as well, so it'll be interesting to see it when it gets here. Yeah.
Anyway, Chris, we're almost, we're kind of into December now, when Christmas is approaching. What are your plans for the festive season? Have you got any big trips on, or will it be a seasonal greetings and fun at home?
More of the second, I think. Yeah. Though, if the weather's good enough, I'm hoping to get out. And of course, if this lasts, particularly, I'm looking forward to doing some skiing. I don't usually do very long trips over Christmas, New Year. Partly because up here the daylight's too short. A couple of overnight trips, yes, but when you've got 17, 18 hours of darkness, I'd rather be somewhere warmer. Come the new year, of course, I'm hoping to get out for much longer.
Well, I had quite a lot of plans for Christmas, but I just found out 2 or 3 months ago that I'm going to be a grandfather for the first time on the 1st of January around about this. So I think our Christmas might be totally wrapped up with buying prams and papooses and kids' nappies and things. But I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's quite exciting. So listen, the snow's come on again, and we've got a bit of a hike back down to Glenmore. Maybe get a cup of tea down there. So thanks for that. I'll put the microphone away now, and I should say the pair of us are up here without an ice axe or crampons. Isn't that shocking? Aye, we were caught out there all right. And it is, of course, good practice to have an ice axe with you when the hills are snow-covered. Maybe we'll get one for our Christmas. Well, a couple of TGO shows ago, we tested your knowledge of the English hills with this little teaser. Being a stickler for accuracy, I'm not really sure if the hill I'm sitting on has been correctly named by the Ordnance Survey. They appear to have shortened it for some reason, deleting a name that's synonymous with adventure films. Now, it's a marvellously pointy little peak, and it's formed by a hard igneous rock that appealed to certain tool makers a long, long time ago. I'm looking down on one of the best-loved views in the best-loved areas of England. Where am I? Well, thanks to everyone who emailed us with the answer, and much to our surprise, only 3 people got it right. It is, of course, Pike o' Stickle in Langdale, originally known as Pike o' Harrison Stickle. Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, adventure films, get it now? Ha! Well, we put the 3 names in a hat and pulled out a winner, and that was Sandra Reynolds of Buxton, so she'll be getting a free year's subscription to TGO magazine. Well, I thought I'd try you out again with another Where Am I? And here's a wee tip for you. I'm standing on the summit of a Munro. I'm standing high above what is reckoned to be Scotland's longest glen, and away to the north-east of me there lies a great whale-backed peak that is known as the Fairy Hill of the Caledonians. Now, curiously, the cairn that I'm standing beside isn't so much made from rocks and stones, but dozens of old metal fence posts. Where am I? So, if you know where I am, drop us an email to whereami, all in one word, at tgomagazine.co.uk. That's whereami at tgomagazine.co.uk. And the very first correct answer will receive a free year subscription to the magazine. Well, that's about it for this month, and indeed this year, and it only remains for me to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year too. And remember, if you're still looking for Christmas gift ideas, TGO magazine is the place to look. See you next time.